Explosive accusations from President Trump today alleging former President Obama tapped the phone lines at Trump Tower just weeks before the election. Welcome to Waters World, everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle, in for Jesse Waters. So are the accusations true? What does Obama say about all of this? Who is behind it? And are these alleged taps even legal? We'll talk about all of that and much more tonight. But first, we head to Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump is about to meet with some of his staff. Fox News correspondent Kristen Fisher is there with the very latest from his camp. Kristen?
Hey, Kimberly, well, it's been over 12 hours since President Trump first tweeted out this shocking claim that former President Barack Obama wiretapped some of the phones inside Trump Tower during the campaign. So it's been several hours, and yet we still haven't heard from many White House officials. They haven't really provided any proof or evidence yet to back up these claims. But let's take a look at really the tweet that started it all from President Trump this morning. He said that, quote, "How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate bad or sick guy." Well, in response to that, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff said this, and I'm quoting here. He says, "If there's something bad or sick going on, it's the willingness of the nation's chief executive to make the most outlandish and destructive claims without providing a scintilla of evidence to support them." So some really big accusations here, and if true, it could lead to some very serious trouble for former President Barack Obama and his staff. You're essentially accusing him of president of wiretapping the campaign headquarters of his political adversary. But if false, then it really just gives critics of our new president, President Trump, a lot of ammunition. They've been saying that, perhaps he plays loose with the truth, and this would play right into that if the claim is false.
Okay, and what have we heard from President Obama?
Well, he put out a statement through a spokesperson a few hours ago, and it's a denial, of course. He's denying that any of this is true, but it's not quite as ironclad of a denial as you might have thought. Here's the exact statement. It reads, quote, "A cardinal rule of the Obama administration was that no White House official ever interfered with any independent investigation led by the Department of Justice. As part of that practice, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Any suggestion otherwise is simply false." But you'll note that he doesn't offer that same denial for the FBI or the Department of Justice. Now, it's not really his place to do so, but it is pretty noteworthy that he at least left that door open a little bit. Kimberly?
Okay, and what is Team Trump doing right now? They're at dinner, correct?
Yeah, they're at dinner. They're having this big dinner at Mar-a-Lago. About an hour ago, President Trump had a meeting with his Secretary of Homeland Security and Attorney General Jeff Sessions, likely to talk about that new revised order on immigration, which is expected to come sometime early next week, possibly as early as Monday. But right now, they are all sitting down at dinner at Mar-a-Lago, along with his newly confirmed Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Ross, and some senior staff members, including Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. So a lot to talk about tonight at dinner at Mar-a-Lago, Kimberly.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much. Perhaps they are watching right now. And Geraldo Rivera joins us now in studio. So lots to discuss. Two lawyers together tonight. Perfect timing in terms of this story to go over some of the specifics. As you saw, Kristen saying that the president is down in Mar-a-Lago. He started this morning when he tweeted the information, sounding like he had just received it. And then hence the story started breaking from there.
I woke up this morning to do Fox and Friends and was greeted with the news. A couple of observations. As the President of the United States is with the Attorney General right now and with General Kelly in dinner and Steve Bannon and these other key aides, I think it is incumbent on President Trump to clarify his tweets this morning. I mean, with all due respect to the Commander-in-Chief, he can't put out something as explosive as these particular tweets, these allegations, these extraordinary allegations that the 44th president wiretapped the 45th president. This is very, very nuclear stuff. And the president has to tell us whether he really believes that the tweets that he issued this morning are accurate. Are they literally true, or are they hyperbole? He has to tell us that, because right now the consequences are enormous. Why? First of all, I just as a parenthetically, One of the nicest things about the transition has been the relationship between President Obama and President Trump.
Right.
They have been very respectful of each other, and President Trump has even gone on to suggest that President Obama must like him because they're always so nice, and President Obama has always been so giving to him, President Trump. So for him to call President Obama bad and sick, I mean, wow, there must be something going on. Now, is it paranoid ravings of the new president? I don't think so. He wouldn't just get up there, read Breitbart, and start spewing stuff about wiretapping. It would seem to me that there is something going on. There is some kind of surveillance in Trump Tower, or has been going on. Now, when you consider that the FBI and everybody in the world now agrees that Russia has been hacking or hacked our election,
yeah,
then that's what the investigation is about. So was there a FISA court, was there a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court warrant to justify a surveillance of Trump Tower? I think that is a very, very crucial issue.
And what's really important here, so people understand what you're saying, and as a lawyer, let's explain it, go through them, exactly what is FISA? How do you go about getting that kind of authorization to conduct what we loosely term wiretapping? The FBI usually is the ones that will be the proffer of that kind of request. So talk about that.
The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the justices are from the federal district courts. They are appointed by a Supreme Court judge. The court is secret, which makes it very different than any other court. It is a secret proceeding. You never hear what happens in a FISA court. A FISA court concerns exactly what it says. Foreign intelligence. There has to be evidence that a foreign government or an agent for a foreign government has been conducting espionage in the United States or against the United States. So is there probable cause for a FISA judge to issue a warrant? Is there probable cause, in other words, that someone in the Trump campaign and later in his transition and then in his administration was conspiring with a foreign government to do what? Were they working to undermine the Democrats in the election, Hillary Clinton? Were they telling Vladimir Putin after Donald Trump won the election, don't worry about Obama's sanctions, they don't mean anything to us. Once President Trump takes office, you're not going to have any sanctions. What was going on? What is Donald Trump talking about? He has to. I think it is incumbent on the 45th president to tell us what's going on.
If this is true, it is explosive. This is something that would be very serious in terms of if the administration in any way was involved, if in fact they did put this forward, what was the justification for it, and that's why there is the concern. I mean, I agree with you. It seems to me that there was something that perhaps President Trump was made aware of, and it was almost like an excited utterance in the form of a tweet that was contemporaneous with receiving that information. He put that out, so it must be based on something that he was told by the intelligence community or some information he came across.
There's only two options. Either the wiretap was legal, that is, it has a FISA warrant attached to it, a judge has signed off on it, or the tap itself is illegal. If the tap is illegal and someone is snooping on people in Trump Tower,
then it's Watergate.
Then it is Watergate. Then it is a break-in, a digital Watergate. It is a very, very serious felony.
But if it's legal and they were justifiably listening to foreign agencies or foreign government conducting espionage in the United States, and it was picked up pursuant to a legal wiretap and warrant, then there would be no foul play.
What is the probable cause?
Right. What is the justification for it?
What is the justification, the legal justification? How in the world did they get a warrant? What was going on that convinced the judge that there was probable cause to issue this warrant?
Because there has to be some means or grounds available to say that there is sufficient evidence that there's some kind of crime that has occurred or something going on as it relates to espionage, which is a little suspicious since we've been getting all this information about the Democrats trying to associate, during even the election, President Trump, his team at the time, candidate Trump, with the Russians, saying there was some kind of nefarious relationship going on.
Yeah, I love the fact that the Trump administration and the Republicans are showing pictures of all these prominent Democrats with the Russians, with the old commies. Oh yeah, look at there he is having donuts. Senator Schumer having donuts with the Russian ambassador, the spy master, and all the rest of it. Good for the goose, good for the gander. Let the Democrats be embarrassed. Well, this is much more serious.
Yes, absolutely true. And that Russian ambassador was at the White House 22 22 times under President Obama. So he was at all the functions. All right, Geraldo, I'm going to ask you to stand by for a moment, and thank you so much. And still to come are accusations like this too much for Twitter, or is it really the only way that President Trump can get a fair shake? Our panel is going to debate it. And next, a former Bush administration official says she knows the wiretappings did in fact happen. She's going to fill us in when we come back. Stay with us. While we are watching and waiting for more details to emerge surrounding President Trump's accusations of wiretapping against the Obama administration, one D.C. insider says it definitely happened. Kathy Aru is that insider. She's a liberal journalist who served as a senior advisor in the Bush administration, and she joins me now. So, Kathy, what do you know?
All right. Well, my sources this morning, my source from the White House told me she thinks it's all true. She said there were concerns that Trump, and this is from the White House and the administration, so inside the White House, there were concerns that Trump and his surrogates may have been colluding with the Russians as a possible bargaining chip to influence the election. Therefore, the wiretap was conducted.
Okay, so the idea is, in fact, that they went ahead and believed that this information was correct, went to the FISA court, then based on probable cause, put the evidence forward to say, we have this information and belief, and therefore we want this granted. It just seems highly suspicious because that seems to be being used for improper means. In fact, to say, well, we want to spy on them to see what they're doing during this election process where there's this tight race between, at the time, candidate Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Right, and my source believes it. After 7.5 years with the Obama administration, had heard that there were concerns, and she said that she is not sure who secured the warrant. That's her one question. Who secured the warrant? But the White House and the administration, they were concerned, and they did discuss the wiretapping.
Very interesting. We have a Geraldo Rivera who's still here with us on set. Based on what she's saying from those inside sources, does that change some of the opinion that you have on this?
It doesn't. Let me just say, for a probable cause in a FISA context is very, very difficult to attain. You really have to have the goods. In this context, in the context of a presidential election, a closely contested election, where these two camps were out to kill each other, imagine the level of probable cause you would need for a judge to issue a warrant. I just think that if this story is true, then there's something very explosive going on. That's why I want President Trump, to tell us that he misspoke or put it in context. I mean, to talk about Nixon and Watergate and so forth, he really owes us a clarification.
My source, direct quote, said the intelligence community did its due diligence given the threat of the Russian influence. So it's merely due diligence by conducting the wiretapping. They had to do it. Something was heard. They did their due diligence. So she is confirming that the White House and the administration was aware of it.
Very interesting. So what's going to happen next, Geraldo, after this? We get this information. It sounds like, at least, perhaps we don't know because this is just breaking news tonight and the story is developing, but it sounds like perhaps that this did occur, and then we just have to check into what was the reason behind it.
But if they did due diligence and came up with nothing, you know, due diligence doesn't mean they found something.
Right.
Due diligence means it was incumbent on them to do the investigation. Could they have done the investigation and found zero? That's what the president said in one of these tweets, that they looked into us, they did these dirty tricks and found nothing. If that's the case, then that's what the president can tell us tomorrow. They did it, they came all over me, they were crawling all over me, they had all these people, and they found nothing. Let us know.
Well, right, because also then you think about the stories that have been developing and happening in the news, the allegations against General Mike Flynn, now the allegations against Jeff Sessions, all of these things, it seems, are following the same narrative of pushing the Russian story and trying to tie in President Trump and, at the time, his campaign and election with them. Because you even saw that in the WikiLeaks emails with Podesta. There was allegations and some of the statements about the Russians and tying the Russians in. So that's what I think is very interesting.
We don't know who secured the warrant. That's what's interesting. My source doesn't know. We don't know who secured the warrant.
You mean which person?
Yeah. Did the president know?
I can't imagine the president wouldn't know.
That's what my
I mean, the
source
president
believes.
couldn't or wouldn't order it, but he had to know.
Yeah,
That's
the president can't specifically order it himself. It would have to be intelligence agency or the FBI putting it forward. But what was the nexus of this? What, in fact, generated this request, this interest? What was it based on? There has to be a legal reason, and it can't be that one side was trying to weigh and tip the election based on their ideology or political orientation.
Just the only thing is that General Flynn and Jeff Sessions are not accused of espionage or anything like it.
In
They're
any
accused
way.
of not telling the truth under oath. That's way different than this national security that they knew or they were dealing with the Russians. We got to be clear about that.
Absolutely. All right, Kathy and Geraldo, thank you so much. And President Obama supporters, they are defending him tonight, saying a president cannot order a wiretap. But rules didn't stop the Obama White House before. Remember when the IRS targeted conservatives? Well, Rick Grinnell has some perspective on that next. Stay with us. Well, there's mounting speculation that former President Obama and his top aides are behind the leaks dogging President Trump's administration. According to sources in a New York Times investigation this week, Obama White House officials wanted to leave a clear trail of intelligence for investigators. So is this really the revenge of the losers? Joining me now, former spokesman for the U.S., ambassador to the United Nations, Rick Grinnell. So, Rick, good evening. Thanks for being here with us tonight. A lot of breaking news. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, look, I'm concerned that right now we have so much politicization of the intelligence community on the left and the right. We've got to root it out. We have to have intelligence agencies that are not cheering for one political party or the other. It's crucial. And it's also troubling to hear the previous guest talk about that there could have been a wiretap approval in order to do due diligence. And think about that, Kimberly. I know you're a lawyer, and the idea that you would put something forward just to double check during a highly partisan presidential campaign is really outrageous. We know that the original approval or request was denied in June, and then there may have been one that was approved after that. Meanwhile, in the middle of that, we had the Obama and Hillary surrogates screaming about Russian ties and really trying to make the case that there must be something there because they see smoke. So, of course, a partisan intelligence community is then going to say, well, we should do due diligence to make sure that this is not happening. I find that all outrageous. We must have an intelligence community that's grown up enough, and I know many in the intelligence community who are outraged by their colleagues who are being partisan on both the left and the right. We've got to gut this out and get it more professional because we cannot have this type of problem ongoing, whether it's in the Obama administration or in the Trump administration.
You're absolutely right. To be fair, this cannot happen under the Trump administration either. You cannot have loyalists operating within the intelligence community and really affecting and impacting outcomes. And if you have people that are still there that are loyalists to the Obama administration, that are very, strongly opposed to President Trump, this could be a serious problem. My concern is for the president to put something out like that on Twitter this morning and a series of tweets regarding this issue. It makes me think that he was privy to some information that he had just received that was upsetting enough that he took to Twitter to put it out there.
Well, we do know that there have been massive intelligence leaks trying to embarrass President Trump from the beginning, even during the transition when he was president-elect.
Right.
We saw transcripts. The New York Times has reported on possible transcripts in the Mike Flynn calls. We know that they tried to embarrass the president with his calls with other heads of state. So we know that it's been out there, and hopefully that the Trump team has been going through the intelligence community leadership and asking them to get rid of the partisans, whether they be left or right, get rid of them. We cannot have this. The one troubling thing that I have to say throughout all of the campaign is that we saw a second-term president, President Obama, become so partisan in the election. He was campaigning for Hillary. He literally said that if you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, that he would take it as an affront to him. Now, that partisanship in the second term at the end of your administration signals that you're really putting your thumb on the scale with all the levers of government. there seems to be a lot of smoke here, and I feel that our regulators, Congress, congressional leaders must step in and come clean. I want to see the transcripts from all the possible allegations about Trump ties or Trump associate ties to Russia. Let's get it all out there, and let's be clear about what the intelligence community is doing when they say they're doing their due diligence.
Absolutely, because they can't be making these kind of allegations, and we're hearing these stories. We need to know the truth and the facts and get to the bottom of it and see the transcripts to see what's actually going on, because if there are misdeeds, in fact, or criminal activity, they've got to get to the bottom of it. Rick, thank you so much for your perspective tonight.
Thanks, Kimberly.
And up next, if these alleged wiretaps were to investigate the election, they would have bugged Hillary Clinton too, right? Well, Colonel Tony Shaffer smells some hypocrisy here, and he's on deck. Stay with us.
Bring 'em out, bring 'em out, bring 'em out, bring 'em out. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth. Come on. Bring 'em out, bring 'em out.
Welcome back. Well, the idea of a sitting president wiretapping the next possible commander-in-chief is almost inconceivable. But that's the news breaking tonight. Unprecedented allegations from President Trump coming in a series of tweets. He wrote, "Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism." And is it legal for a sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election? Turned down by court earlier, a new low. And how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon, Watergate, bad or sick guy. The Obama administration denies the claims, but some aren't convinced. One of those people is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, a CIA-trained intel operative and senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. And he joins me now. Good evening, Colonel. Great to see you. Explosive news.
Absolutely.
This happened this morning. You were on Fox and Friends talking about it.
Sure.
Some information and news has developed throughout the day.
Confirming what we said earlier, right?
Absolutely. Confirming what you said this morning on the Fox News channel. So tell us where we stand now.
Well, we stand exactly where you were talking about earlier with your other panelists. And Geraldo, look, I'm sorry, due diligence is not a legal standard for extraordinary use of intelligence resources. It's probable cause. So that's the first mistake. And Kimberly, as you pointed out in the introduction, another campaign, the Clinton campaign, actually had overtly contacts with foreign nations and were actually being looked at for pay to play. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, is the probable cause you would need to have to actually do the collection. There is no evidence of this in the Trump campaign. And let me be very clear on this. This has been going back. Rumors have been floating around about this since before last summer, actually. The rumor that they would do something extraordinary. And one of the reasons we're seeing this displayed as it is because, Kimberly, President Obama and the Clintons didn't think they could lose. So what I think Mr. Trump is now seeing is he's getting read into new intelligence programs. He's seeing the true capabilities, which we can't get into here. And the other thing that should have been matched with probable cause is there's no restrictions on how much we can collect on foreign powers, to include the Russians. If there were indications through collection against the Russians something was going on, that would serve as probable cause. Clearly, that didn't exist because the FISA court request was turned down in June. This was a fishing expedition using highly technical, highly classified capabilities, which has resulted in, I believe, a major violation of multiple elements of the US 18 code and some other things, too.
Unbelievable. It seems that they were casting a very wide net. This was turned down before on a prior occasion with the court. So what is it? What was the justification and probable cause that was proffered at the time to be able to grant something like this, especially during such a crucial time in American political history, right before an American election for president, and especially when you had someone in the administration, in the White House, President Obama, who was out actively campaigning, as was the First Lady Michelle Obama, for Hillary Clinton. And then now you have this information coming out with now the commander-in-chief, 45th president, saying, wait a second, what was going on here and what possibly could be the justification?
Well, I think they lied, to be quite honest. I mean, someone had to lie. Now, let me be very clear on this. I have actually had to go to the White House to brief these sorts of operations. I've been over there because when you get to this level of issue, the president is personally aware of everything going on. So his statement today about This non-denial denial was a confirmation. So we have to understand that he was involved. He at least was tacitly knowledgeable, and therefore he is responsible. The buck stops with him. So I think we have to start with that premise. The president knew. When did he know? What did he know, and why did the justification go forward, knowing full well this was a quote-unquote due diligence, not probable cause issue? That's something that has to be resolved.
And there's some information also that we saw today on Twitter. Jon Favreau, Obama former speechwriter, issued and wrote this statement out, and we'll give it here for our viewers. I'd be careful about reporting that Obama said there was no wiretapping. Statement just said that neither he nor the White House ordered it. What does that tell you?
Precisely. That tells me there was an investigation that was prompted by someone. Look, Kimberly, the operations I ran, the White House didn't direct, but I sure as heck had to go up there and brief them on all aspects of it and get feedback. In this case, everything going on in the intelligence community, in the special operations community, in the Justice Department was all being centrally coordinated by the White House, by President Obama's personal staff. So it is there's just absolutely no possibility President Obama was not fully aware of what was going on, and more importantly, that this was a fishing expedition. There was nothing factual to it. And again, I've said on the network several weeks ago, there's been tripwires laid out. And we both know, we all know, that there has been significant leaks of intelligence information to certain outlets, not you guys, New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, NBC, and those leaks came from inside intelligence officers who I would say, I'll go so far to say, is they were probably involved in this very collection that we're now talking about. They leaked it.
Unbelievable. It's explosive news tonight.
Yes,
Colonel
yes,
Schaefer, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Kimberly.
All right. Well, there's still a lot to unpack on this story, as you can tell. Are the accusations like this too much for Twitter, or is this really the only way that President Trump can get a fair shake and communicate to the people? Our panel debates next. Well, President Trump says Obama bugged him at Trump Tower. Even the Speaker of the House saying this to Bret Baier about the controversy.
Have you heard that?
Well, again, and like I said, none of us in Congress or anybody that I know in Congress has been presented with evidence to the contrary of what you just said.
So you believe it to be true?
Yeah, that we have seen no evidence that anybody in this campaign or any other American was in on it with the Russians to meddle in our elections. We know they meddled. Russia's an adversary, and that's something we have to work to counteract.
Well, now the president's facing criticism for the way he delivered his message. Are accusations like this too much for Twitter? Or really, is it the only way that President Trump can get a fair shake by communicating directly? And joining me now to discuss this, our attorneys Eric Guster and Timothy Parlatore. Gentlemen, thanks for being here with me tonight. Obviously a big, explosive breaking news day. And first thing we hear about it, not from the mainstream media, but from President Trump. Eric, he went straight to the people, conveying his message to say clearly something that he had just heard or some information he had been privy to.
And I'm not so sure that Trump even knows what he's heard, because this man tweets about things that are not accurate all the time. But the problem that he may have is, if this is true, that means they have probable cause to bug him. And first of all, the president of the United States cannot order a bug. And it's a shame that the president doesn't know that the president shouldn't do that. Can't do that.
So he's making a specific allegation towards President Obama, but I think encompassing his administration or those that work for him.
Yes, and if he was bugged, then the president or the administration had to have probable cause to do it, which means there's some evidence. There's some smoke there in order for a judge to say, yes, we can bug these lines, and there's a reason for it.
Okay, so Tim, so here's the issue, and you just heard from Speaker Ryan when he was interviewed by Bret Baier saying, look, there has been no evidence put forward or proffered that there was any kind of nefarious activities, untoward, et cetera, between U.S. citizens, Americans, anybody in the Trump administration with the Russians. So what is going on here?
Well, it's very difficult when you look at the particular jurisdiction that issues these FISA warrants, if that's in fact what happened, because it's an ex parte proceeding. Only the prosecutors go in there, you know, only the government. There's no defense attorney there to present the other side. And so they can really put forth whatever they want. You know, when Eric was just saying they had to put forth probable cause, that is the standard, but the judges don't really cross-examine these people to find out, you know, are you telling me the truth? Are you holding back You know, you're telling me the one thing that makes them look guilty, and you're holding back the 30 things that are exculpatory. So while the judge may have found probable cause, we don't know what that's based on. And unfortunately, getting back to your question about Twitter, whatever it's based on is classified secret, so it can't be released right now.
And we don't even know if it's
Yeah,
true.
Colonel Schaefer said
We don't
that.
even know if this is a fact, because Trump tweets some things that are not factual. So we don't even know if this is true, and I believe that he's trying to throw us off of the Russian story with his administration and Jeff Sessions lying before Congress. I believe that's the purpose for us to be talking about
but that's a pretty strong allegation to say the President of the United States Commander-in-Chief would make up a false story to try to distract information.
He does it all the time. He tries to distract us all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
I doubt that that's the case here. I think that he probably has specific information. And in fact, we know that they went to this court back in July, in the summer. It was denied. So on what grounds, on what probable cause, on what information and belief, Tim, could they possibly then have justified getting a wiretap in? You know, for what purpose? It looks untoward. It's something that should be investigated, I think, because there was a major election going on where the president and many in his administration were all in for Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely, because having a warrant application denied is such a rare occurrence in this court, and then for them to go back several months later and make a reapplication, this is a law that if you misuse this process or you reveal something you're not supposed to, like this leak, it's 5 years in prison. It's a felony.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's something that absolutely should be investigated to see what happened there.
All right. Well, I think we can agree, Eric, yes, that this is something should be at least investigated, get to the bottom of it with this kind of allegation.
On any Russian interference in communications at all.
Or if, in fact, this wiretap happened. All right. Lots to discuss on this big breaking news night at Fox News. Up next, a classic Waters World takedown, just like you love it. Jesse confronts one of those people attacking the widow of Navy SEAL Ryan Owens. You don't want to miss it.
Teaches us there is no greater act of love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. Ryan laid down his life for his friends, for his country, and for our freedom, and we will never forget Ryan.
That was President Trump at Tuesday's speech to a joint session of Congress saluting the sacrifice of fallen Navy SEAL William Ryan Owens. His widow, Corinne, the president's special guest for the address, receiving a standing ovation. Very moving moment. But some critics are accusing the president of turning her into a political prop. Earlier, Waters World spoke with one of those critics, former NSA analyst John Schindler. Take a look.
So, John, we have some of the things you tweeted about this, and let's show the audience what we have. Bad decisions happen. War is war. Right until POTUS publicly exploits a widow whose husband's body is still warm. F that, F all that. Also, if watching POTUS publicly exploit Chief Owens' grieving widow didn't make your skin crawl, I worry about you as an American and as a human. So, John, let me ask you just directly here, why are you attacking a grieving widow?
Oh, I'm not attacking Mrs. Owens in any way.
You actually are, though, because you're insinuating that she's a victim and being exploited as a political prop.
Are we really supposed to think that the widow of a Navy senior chief is going to tell the White House, no, I really can't make it to this event? Come on, get real.
Well,
this is
no,
political
at first
theater.
she said she didn't want to go, and then she decided to go. She's going under her own free will. No one made her go.
Sure, whatever. Look, of course she's not literally coerced into going, but come on. Let's be honest. I have no problem. I have no problem with the president honoring Mrs. Owens. What I have a problem with is hours before, he'd completely passed the buck and said they, meaning the senior military leadership, had gotten her husband killed. They lost him, was what he literally said.
This isn't
what does that mean?
This isn't about the raid. And we can play the game all you want because President Obama threw generals under the bus for missing the rise of ISIS.
Absolutely he did.
So does that mean he can't honor any victims from San Bernardino? Of course it doesn't. He can honor whoever he wants. And it's not about the raid. Like I said, it's about this widow and about her husband.
It is about the raid.
And it's about the long service that he has given this country. What's wrong with honoring that?
There is nothing wrong with honoring that. There's something wrong with honoring it when you give contradictory answers about what happened here. As I said, mistakes happen. War is war. We lost a member of a Navy SEAL team, and that's awful. That does happen. That's not the issue here.
Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question, because I just want to see if you're consistent. When Hillary Clinton trotted out the Khan family, Gold Star parents, during the DNC, were they being exploited also?
Well, their son hadn't died a month before. I don't think it's exactly the same situation.
You're splitting hairs, my man.
No, I'm not.
You just did.
I mean, look, if they wanted to do it, they can do it. That's fine.
Okay, so if they wanted to do it, it's okay.
Do I get to talk
here? But if
here?
she wanted to do it, it's not okay? Go ahead.
Do I get to talk here?
Go ahead.
Do I get to talk here? My point, which you blew off in splitting hairs, is that President Trump threw this entire raid under the bus, denied his ultimate responsibility as the commander-in-chief. Indeed, he said this was cooked up under Obama. That's true. By the way, the Bay of Pigs raid was cooked up under President Eisenhower. President Kennedy executed it. JFK didn't try to pin that on Ike.
We can play this
game. He was the commander-in-chief.
John, we can play this game all you want. Hillary Clinton, during a speech at the funeral of Chris Stevens, who lost his life in Benghazi, blamed an internet video. I mean, it's politicians do these things. Because you're saying that this guy, President Trump, is exploiting this person because the raid didn't go as smoothly as planned. War is war. I agree with you. But I can't even believe that you would denigrate the service and sacrifice of this family by accusing her of being a pawn for the president. You wouldn't say that to her face, would you, John?
Sure. Absolutely.
You would say that to her face. You know what? If you would actually say that to her face, you'd probably get slapped in the face.
No, I served in the Navy. Did you?
I didn't, and I thank you for your service. But I think your hate for Trump is clouding your compassion. I want you to react to this. Hold on. Taya Kyle, the widow of Chris Kyle, American sniper, had this to say. Patronizing her is a cowardly and a cheap attempt to discredit the legitimacy of the recognition she stood on to accept on her husband's behalf. The expression of gratitude Corinne Owens accepted was not just for the one fateful day he was killed, but for his years of service in fighting the war on terror as a silent professional. How would you like to react to that?
Fine. She's a SEAL widow as well. That's her right, and that's her opinion, and that's great. This is America. You can say what you want. I do want to raise one issue with you. You do realize, did you do your research? You realize I was an extremely harsh critic of Hillary Clinton over Benghazi, over the lies, over the video. Did you do any research on that?
Yeah, I researched you, and I found you to be a Trump hater as well. And I think you should be ashamed of yourself for putting down this poor widow and saying that the entire country is, you know, out of bounds for applauding this beautiful moment. Everybody in America thought this was a beautiful moment except you and a few kooks.
Me and a few kooks. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah.
Okay, if you want to throw in with these people on The View and you want to throw in with Michael Moore and Bill Maher, that's fine. But the rest of this country thought that was a powerful moment, and it was about her. It wasn't about your political agenda.
Well, I don't
I'll give you the last word.
Agenda, actually.
I'll give you the last word.
Well, maybe if you'd served, you'd have a better perspective. Not having served, you don't. And that's cool. God bless America.